video with feathers. In this video, I'm going to talk about face savers, aka four-wheel drive, aka truck poles. There are a lot of people out there who think they don't need these bad boys, but I have found a million uses for these guys that I'm going to share with you guys, on top of all of the different features and bells and whistles you can choose from, how to size them, how to use them properly, and see if by the end of this video, maybe you want a pair of truck poles, because I have a few truck poles. So one of the first features of your face savers that you want to figure out is, do you want aluminum or carbon fiber? So carbon fiber look like this. Usually they have like a cool texture to them, and they tend to absorb a lot more while hiking. They're a lot lighter, but they tend to be a little weaker. And then you have your aluminum. These bad boys are hefty. They're not that much heavier in my opinion, and they're strong. They're super strong. I personally like carbon fiber, but own both. So just something to think about there. Okay, let's talk handles. So there are usually 3 different materials that truck pole handles are made out of. You have foam, cork, and rubber. Okay, real quick before I get into this too much, I just want to put it out there that let it be known there's a lot of controversy on which is best and so on and so forth, or lightest. Yeah, some cases the cork can be lighter than the foam, and that really just comes down to how it's made. But I'm going to generally speak about truck pole handles and my experience with them so that y'all can get a good idea. So starting out with the foam handles, now these tend to be the cheapest, I think, to purchase. They are said to be sweat absorbing, but I find them to be more wicking, which kind of makes them a little slimy and slippery in hot weather. So I like to use mine mostly in the spring and the fall. They are definitely, in my personal experience, to be a lot lighter than all other truck pole handles, but I don't really care about that much. Okay, next one, cork. Cork to me is my favorite. It is the most popular too amongst most hikers. It can over time morph to your hand, which is fantastic. It is super light, and it is absorbent to the sweat. On long treks, some people find that they tend to get slimy, but I defeated that by finding that if you just kind of put a little coat of hand sanitizer on it every once in a while, it keeps it from getting that slippery, smooth sliminess that just happens over time. So cork, a little bit more durable, I feel like, than the foam. Even though they claim foam is the toughest, my foam always gets nicked up. I don't know, maybe I'm rough on it, but my cork never tends to. Now if you look at 2 of my trek poles, this one was from the PCT, this one was from the AT. There was certain things that started to happen. I don't know if the cork shrunk here or if it just separated. I used the Cascade Mountain Tech trek poles on both my AT and PCT through hike. I'll be switching to Hiker Hunger this season. I'm excited about it, mainly because of the little metal versus plastic clips, and they're a little bit lighter, so we'll see how that goes. Then let's go into rubber. Now rubber is not something you're going to tend to see much on a long through hike, but these are meant for winter trekking and hiking and mountaineering and skiing. Rubber is great for gloves, but man, will it chafe your raw hand if you get any sweat in there. It can even cause blisters. They're definitely a lot heavier than your other 2 choices, and they're durable. So here's another thing. There happens to be a whole lot of different ways that these trek poles adjust in height, and you're going to need them to adjust in height to make sure that it'll fit you properly, which I'll show you in a second how to do. But first, let's talk about all of the different types of adjusters. How your trek poles telescope, which means how they just collapse and extend. Some of them collapse and have a little rubber end like these. Some of them have these little clips. These are my favorite. Here's a little closer up of those. Now I like these ones that Hiker Hunger has with the metal over the plastic, because my plastic ones, for example, that I used, this is from the AT, the plastic did break, but I found that I like being able to screw this with my hand and not needing a tool, whereas my black diamond ones, I need a screwdriver to adjust that, which helps you tighten this little clamp. And the more you use them, they do start to get loose and you do need to tighten them. And then the third type are these. These are like a little screw, so you basically have your trek pole and you're screwing them tight after you've extended them out to where you want them. You kind of screw them tight and then you loosen them by screwing the opposite direction. So there is a very fancy feature that I, believe it or not, do not own a trek pole with, which is a shock. Now, all trek poles in general are designed to help take pressure off of your joints. Now, when you have a shock on a trek pole like this, this is made to relieve pressure on your arms and your wrists. That's what these shocks are for. Let's talk about all the little gadgets and doohickers that come with your trek poles. So this little guy, this is just a clip to keep your trek poles together. It's for storage. There's really no other point for it. If you want to take this with you, you must be very OCD about how you store your trek poles. Right, the next little guy I want to talk about are these little guys. These are called mud baskets, and some of them have holes in them like this. Ooh. Now these guys are great for sand, kind of crusted over snow, or you know, packed snow. Also very good for mud. Oh, who knew? I like them for crusted over snow or packed snow, especially when you're on a huge grade and you have your trek poles and you're trying to use them, stab them into the ground to get, you know, extra support besides just an ice axe. Sometimes I would use an ice axe and a trek pole fully extended, short and long. Something to do. But if you use an actual snow basket like these guys, that's not going to be very easy to do. These prevent you from going in the snow, and these are best for powder. You don't want to take any of these ones that come with trekking poles out cross-country skiing or skiing. They're not meant for that, so there is a special type for that scenario. Then you have these cute little booty ones. Oh, these are so fun. I have never used these, but what these are supposed to be for are slippery surfaces like smooth rock. If you ever do like some major road walking, maybe on the El Camino or something, you might want a couple of these, or the Florida Trail that's got a lot of road walking. But that's what these guys are for, to protect your carbine tip. And then you've got the little dab guys. These are good for storage and also for areas that they're trying to preserve, like sensitive areas that you don't want to divot with your trek pole or anything. Also smooth rocks and areas like that. But mostly these are to protect your tips and also the environment. So yeah, that's what these little guys are for. Isn't that interesting? These attach, by the way, just by sliding them up, and you turn and twist them on like so. Voila, you're ready for some pow. And then you have your just general carbine tips. All mine are worn away. Here's another one. Carbine tip. Carbine tips are what are underneath all of these guys. But the carbine tips, these are great for just hard compressed trail of dirt or small rocks, root. These are great for that, just raw as they are. And that's what most hikers on through hikes tend to just have, is these guys open and out there. So those are what all those little tips are for. Some tips for your tips. Okay, let's talk about sizing trek poles. Trek poles usually come with a number system on them that's marked right on the inside. So when you extend your trek poles, you will find all these different numbers. One side's usually centimeters, one side's usually inches. Some cases there's a chart. Here's an example. We'll kind of give you an idea of what size you're going to set your trek pole at. So I'm 5'8", so I tend to put mine at 115 centimeters or 46 inches. And you want to match that number on the top and the bottom. So there will be a 46 on this lower shaft and there'll be a 46 on this higher part. So you're going to make sure that both clamps, depending on which kind of adjuster you have for your trek pole, but you're going to do the same number on the top and the bottom to make the pole the proper length. And I always use fingernail polish to mark where my trek poles need to be, so that in the mornings when I'm groggy or if I'm hiking, I can look down and see if that's actually moved or not. So if my trek poles get off a little bit, I can see right away. That's just something I do. You want to make sure that your arm stays at a 90-degree angle. If your arm is up at all, this is too high. Your trek pole needs to come way down to where your arm, and when you're walking, stays at a 90-degree angle. So that is also another indicator of what size your trek pole should be set at. Okay, so let's talk about how to properly use the handles on your trek poles. Now this is very important, and a lot of people, including myself, tend to have the bad habit of just going straight in and grabbing your trek pole. This is so wrong, and you can really hurt your wrist, snap it actually, if you post hole or anything like that and trip and fall while having your hands in here like this, and I've come very close to doing that. So the proper way to hold your trek pole is not like that. What you are supposed to do is go up through the bottom and then grab your trek pole like so. So that's the difference in what it looks like when you're holding your trek pole properly. So make sure that when you're trekking, if you're going to use your straps, always to go up and then grab. So let's real quick talk about how to size your wrist straps. This is super easy. There's a little tooth inside the head of the trek pole, and when you pull down on this extra little tongue here, the rubber knob will pop out, and you are able, by using the top, to just kind of adjust where you want it, and then this guy will suck back in. You can push it back in if you want to make sure it's snug. These tend to loosen up a little bit over time, and you will have to continue to adjust them. Might as well get into this extra little handle here. I love these guys. These are great for going uphill. I am one of those fidgety hikers that I can't stand to have my hand in the same position all day long. So I'll have my hand here for a while. Sometimes on flat ground, I'll use them like a cane and use it up here, drop them down a little lower, When I'm really tired, I'll put my hand in wrong, don't do this, and kind of rest my arm in here and grab that lower ring and pull myself up the hills. When you're going a little steeper incline, that's what this lower handle is great for, pulling you up. Are these things radical? We don't use that word enough anymore. Anyway, but there are so many ways that you can use these, and the pros have even more tips. They say when you go uphill, you should shorten them a little bit and make sure that when you're stepping with it, the front of the tip never passes your lead foot. When you're going downhill, you can extend them a little longer to take a little extra weight off of you, and it should always extend past your lead foot. When you're on a graded hill, hiking across the hill that's very steep, you shorten one and you have one longer. Can help stabilize you, and that is actually something that I have done on trail. I did that through the Sierras quite a bit when I wasn't using my ice axe. So anyway, yes, trek poles. All right, so there are a lot of uses for these bad boys. Now, they're the uses that they're meant to do, and then there are all the creative uses that people have come up with over time that I'm going to share with you. So this is going to be a really fun section of this video. Let's first just talk basics. Obviously, these guys are meant to take pressure off of your joints. They are also meant to set up tents nowadays. And my favorite, they are help to prevent fat finger syndrome. I don't know what the deal is behind this. I've tried looking up online, but I am one of those people that when I hike without trek poles, for whatever reason, my fingers swell up like Cabbage Patch Kids, and it's nasty. And it hurts, to be totally honest. So I refuse to hike without trek poles for that reason alone. Over time, people have come up with some amazing inventions for these guys, and I'm going to share some of them with you right now. So one of my most favorite inventions is the clinometer. I think I'm saying that correctly. The pole clinometer is this little sticker here that helps you determine if a slope is avalanche prone or not. You just simply dangle it by the strap or hold it with two fingers like this in front of you, close one eye, and you can see both downhill and at a slope that you're walking across. I bought a few of these, so watch out in some upcoming videos. I have a whole bunch of giveaways from some different people who have reached out to me and wanted me to try their products. This company I actually discovered on my own. I think what they've actually created is genius, so I wanted to share it with you guys. But here's one example of something that someone has come up with that has helped turn your trek pole into an extra useful tool. So another cool invention that's out there that I discovered while on the PCT this last summer, you may have seen the video, was the Whip It by Black Diamond. Now this is an actual attachment that turns your trek pole into an ice axe. I don't know how efficient this works. I haven't heard back from any of the people that I know that had it and used it. But hey, there's something else that was created that's pretty cool. So there's an invention out there that I've heard about, but I have not been able to find it. I'm sure it does exist. But apparently people have told me that there is a thru hiker, a very seasoned thru hiker, that had the brilliant idea of creating an attachment to turn your trek pole into a fishing rod. I can't imagine this would be very difficult to create on your own, but there is a dude out there who sells this and copywritten something about it. I don't know, I couldn't find it, but if you could find it and you're into fishing, that might be something you might like to have a trek pole and do with a trek. There are also other attachments that are already created and out there easy to find, like turning your trek pole into a paddle. So if you're a big kayaker or hiker, I don't know, there's paddle attachments so you can turn your trek pole into a paddle. I took a first aid class, and here's something that a lot of people may not think about you can use trek poles for. But your trek poles, if you've ever pulled them too far, oops, they come out. But you know what these are great for? You can use these to make a splint, a makeshift splint. So if you have a broken leg or anything like that, you can pull your trek poles apart and make splints with these extra little pieces. Another wonderful thing you can do with a trek pole is you can use it to hold your duct tape. So you can just wrap your duct tape like so around the shaft, and then you'll have duct tape whenever you need it, and you won't have to carry it on your back. One less thing on your back, it's fantastic. So duct tape, trek pole, it's an idea. Protection. Trek poles are great for protection. You could really hurt someone with one of these things. I don't recommend it unless you absolutely need to, but you can hurt yourself with one of these things unintentionally. So again, they can make great weapons or noise makers. So if you have a bear, little black bears, I've had those walk up on me numerous times, and just clicking them together, it makes quite a bit of noise, and it can spook them away if necessary. Cha, 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 cha. I love trek poles. Another way that I used my trek pole, especially on the AT, was as a probe. So there were areas on the AT where I was walking on a little plank of wood through miles of backcountry, and it looked like straight mud on the sides of me, and it was. And I used my trek pole on a lot of occasions to kind of probe. It's a great probe to find out how deep things really are. And in some of those spots, I kid you not, my trek pole, there's videos of this also if you look back in my archives, of my trek pole being fully extended in the mud right off, one step off of those little planks would be all the way up to your waist, or even deeper sometimes. So it was kind of dumbfounding but awesome to have something that you could see if you could actually step on something or not. So one of the things I love trek poles the most for is log crossings. Now those slippery logs sometimes can be really freaky, and when you have trek poles going across anything like rocks, you can extend them even longer and help use them to balance you as you go across things like slippery logs. So another really awesome idea I learned during a first aid course was you can turn 2 sets of trek poles into a stretcher very easily. By taking 2 poles on each side, putting a handle at either end, and a tarp in between, you can make a really light makeshift stretcher. So one of my favorite uses for a trek pole, being an early bird and hitting the trail quite early on some days, you are the cobweb clearer. So I don't care if that trail was tracked by 20 people the day before, there are going to be cobwebs on it first thing in the morning, all down that trail, and they're going to be all over your face if you don't have a trek pole to clean the way. So there are also attachments for these bad boys to turn them into selfie sticks and to film with. I'm sure you've seen numerous people do that, but it is a cool extra way to use your trek pole. So I also found trek poles to be very handy while trying to set up camp in the snow. Now the tips of these bad boys go into snow quite easily, and if you've ever tried to stake a tent in the snow, it can be a bit of a nightmare. Sometimes you have to bury your tent stake and then pack it with snow, and then the next morning it's complete ice and you got to pick it out with your ice axe or your trek pole. But if you use your trek poles as stakes in a couple of the corners and an ice axe, you have a lot easier morning and a lot faster setup. So just something to think about. Trek poles do make great tent stakes in certain situations. Yes, one of my most favorite ways to use a trek pole, when you stop during the day for either lunch or whatever, and you need to take a break, a load off, and you want to lean back because you are tired, your back is tired, you can turn a collapsed trek pole, so get it all the way down to its smallest form, into the back of a chair. So what you would do is you would take both your trek poles, condense them down, and then on one side you put your backpack, like so, and your trek pole holding up your backpack, and then you have the back of a chair. Your butt's still on the ground, but you know what? You can lean against something, and it's fan-friggin-tastic. Oh yeah, that's real nice. Another fantastic thing to do with your trek poles is to use them as a clothes dryer. Look at that. When you're all sweaty, a puffy, you name it, you hang it up, it catches the wind, and it dries so magnificently. Alright, so replacing your tips is not impossible. So if you have trek poles that you've worn the tips down, you can actually replace this section of your trek pole. These are usually glued on, and depending on if they've been bent or anything, they can be really easy or really difficult to take off. Sometimes you need to freeze them or boil them to loosen up that glue. Or I've seen another person on YouTube use a big hefty one of these, kind of size it up on here, and then slam it down. Or if you don't want to do this yourself, you can take them into outfitters and they will replace them. But if you saw my video with Ivy Tat, the first day that we started hiking, he was back on trail with a new tip after having it replaced in Oregon, and the outfitter did a very poor job and he lost it within an hour. So just be careful, make sure your tip's really on there, and yeah, happy hiking. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I kind of tried to just skim over everything. I don't want to make it too boring or too long and drawn out, but if there's any awesome tips or tricks of the trade that you've figured out using a trek pole, drop it below for people so that they can see those and use those as well. The more the merrier, right? We all are looking to make life a little bit easier on these through hikes, so it's great to know what other people have discovered. If you're not following me already, please follow along and subscribe. So I'm going to wrap this video up talking a little bit about the trek poles that I've used. I've only used one trek pole.